my pleasure to, of course, welcome again in our studio here live, Senator Eta Enang, who is a legal practitioner and also former presidential aide. Senator Eta, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, let's also welcome for this discussion the first time, Comrade Dominic Alancha. He's a public affairs analyst. Comrade Alancha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Also joining us from Ilorin, Kwara State via Zoom is Comrade Issa Aremu, Director General, Chief Executive Officer, Michael Imodo National Institute for Labor Studies. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Demola and Claire. We are back again, laboring on labor issues.
Yeah, we are back. Okay, Claire.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with you, Comrade Issa Aremu. And fortunately, you are privy to the processes of resolution of the strike yesterday. Could you just enlighten us on what's transpired?
Well, thank you so much, Claire. I wasn't at the meeting as such, but what had transpired is already an open knowledge that after disagreement, after contestation, both the federal government and organized labor, commendably, they've found a common ground to discuss and resolve the problem at work. At hand. And that's very, very significant, which shows that labor relations or government labor relations is always characterized by contestation at times, and later on, they need to cooperate to find an agreement. So I would like to commend the two parties for at least discussing the issues. And it's clear the Office of the NSA, National Security Advisor, facilitated this meeting, attended by the Honorable Minister of Labor, the two of them, both the Minister of State as well as the Minister of Labor, and of course the representative of TUC and NSC. And from what we gathered, it was clear that government regretted what happened. The avoidable, preventable violence meted on the president of NSC, Comrade Joe Ajero. Not only that, I think there was an assurance from the NSA that the suspects have been arrested and there will be justice, that will be dispensed to make sure that this kind of action will not occur again. And so if you ask me, I think it is clear now that both the government and labor have shown that they could disagree, but they are not disagreeable to solve the problem. And the lesson of this is what should not be lost on all the two parties. I think we have to reflect now that this crisis was quite preventable if all the parties had followed the laid down rules as contained in our legal framework guiding labor relations. Nigeria has come a long way. And we have series of laws that have been put in place to solve problems in the world of work. But the second one is also one takeaway there is that I think the point has been made that labor cannot be underrated. Humans cannot be underrated. Labor is an important factor in development. And you could see that an injury to the NSA presence, became more or less an injury to the entire nation. Protests, and I'm happy organized labor made the point that we should put an end to, violence when it comes to industrial relations. But I'm also sure that labor also learned a lesson, that in asserting our right to struggle, to defend our workers' rights, we need to put certain things in place that we not make us so vulnerable to the kind of crisis we have at hand. So on the whole, Claire, my first takeaway would be that I think it's not time for both government and labor to go back to those fundamental issues affecting the world of work. And I think on that grant, both the federal government and Labour have started very well. After the removal of petroleum subsidy, through dialogue, they came out with 15-point resolutions, which include presidential wage award, which, federal employees have been paid. This should also now go down to the states, because Labour should defend not just federal employees, but the entire state as a whole. Federal government has also promised to set up presidential committee to review the existing minimum wage. I think it's time to constitute that committee. I hope all the parties have sent their members so that we start talking in earnest. A couple of other issues contained in that agreement. I mean, there was an agreement that there will be visitation panel, joint visitational panel between both Labour and government to go and look at the state of refineries that have been repaired. So there is so much to be done, in a very peaceful, cooperative way. But I think I want to urge the federal government that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has announced 8-point agenda. I think it's important to take Labour along, make sure that they are clear about what the issues are. Because when you are carrying reform, we can see now, if Labour is not involved, they could also become an obstacle to resistance when they know that it impacts negatively on their welfare. So all I want to say is that I think the two parties should be commended that at least we find a way to resolve the crisis at a nice time to return back to the real negotiation on core issues that affect the welfare of the workers which Labour represent, and of course, which also must impact on economic growth, because productivity is also important. So if we're asking for minimum wage, living wage, there's also be minimum productivity, living productivity, so that we can address the problem of endemic poverty that we have in the country. So, Demola, this is my first take on the outcome of the negotiation yesterday.
Thank you, Comrade Aremu, for your take there, and it is well noted. You emphasize the need for constant engagement of Labour with government. Senator Enang, I know that you are elated following the development, and you spoke extensively yesterday on the need for the issues to be resolved. Now let's look at the National Labour Relations Act of 1975 and what makes for effective labour relations with government.
Well, let me first congratulate the labour movement, the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, and all the affiliates for successfully asserting themselves and having a lot of wind back for the workers. Let me also congratulate the government for the seriousness is shown, the responsibility and responsiveness and timeous responsiveness is shown. It showed in the handling of the matter. I must also comment finally on this, that under this administration, they have not allowed any of the matters to fester for so long on the part of the government and on the part of Labour, because Labour knows the implications after the judgment, which says that you are not entitled to salary for if you go on strike for the period. So Labour is always very constant, and so I believe that from this and from then on, no party will allow strike to exceed 3 days. Now, I'm excited too that we've resolved the issues, and having resolved the issues, I think it is time for the labour movement and the government to engage more on outstanding issues which are likely capable of leading to strikes. First, there is the wage award. Second, there is a very big one, the matter between the Parliamentary Staff Association, Judiciary Staff Union, and the governors, where the government, where the Constitution has provided that the monies meant for the judiciary should be released to the judiciary in each state. and monies meant for the legislature should be released to the legislature in each of the states. And the governors have not, except about 5 or 6 of them only. Lagos, Delta, Bayelsa, as it were, Plateau, and I think 6 of them have done that. And the labor is on the edge now. They have picketed and they have shown, and it is capable of, it is likely, unless it is arrested, to blow into a full big one, and it will be difficult to handle. So government should not wait for the issues to blow into a strike issue at the national level before it handles. After that, I want to say that it is necessary for the government to engage with labor inside the house in a kind of retreat. They should have a retreat where labor is made to understand that under the Labor Act, the Trade Unions, the Trade Dispute Act, particularly, all the sections of Trade Dispute Act and all the labor laws, that there are laws in Nigeria and that they are existing and subsisting, and that any breach of it, there is consequences. Because sometimes, with respect, labor behaves as if whatever it thinks, whatever it says, is the law. It is on account of this that before now, labor matters were handled by the by the Federal High Court. But because of the frequency and the large amount of cases, the National Industrial Court was created. And I think in 2003, 2004, there was this challenge that, look, the National Industrial Court is not a constitutional court. It's not in the Constitution, rather. And the Constitution was amended to bring the National Industrial Court into the Constitution, to make it a court of record. Now, that court is one of the busiest courts. It has about 5 judicial divisions, 5 courts sitting in Abuja. The president Benedict Kanye, PhD, OFR, is the president. He sits here with 4 other judges. And then almost every state in the country has a National Industrial Court. It is because of the prevalence of industrial dispute. Yet, the labor on their part does not take the issues in the law as important. They don't take it as important. They just think that whatever they think and whenever they're angry, they go and action. Now, there are, and there is this particular aspect. There is the law shows what each of the trade unions should do. You file returns, shows how much revenue you've generated, show what you have spent. Right now, ASU is on the edge because it refused to file returns as to what it has generated, what it is spending on, how much it is, which it should have filed with the trade union, with the Registrar of Trade Unions. Now, when the ministry queried it and issued a suspension, they issued an action, which is the law authorized them to do. They went to court. And later they abandoned the case, and the case was struck out some days ago. What am I saying? That labor should go into a room of a retreat with the government institutions so that they get a lot of orientation on the legal issues, on the issues of law relating to labor relations. And in fact, it was on account of this that the Labor Institute, Michael Imodu Labor Institute was established. It should be a kind of, not compulsion, but a kind of a routine that whenever labor leaders are elected, they should have a level of orientation in the Michael Imodu Labor Institute, Ilorin, so that they get oriented in the do's and don'ts, the processes of declaring strike, the issues on which you can declare strike, the obligations you have as leaders of the trade union, the right of the government, and the fact that they are not a government. Because sometimes labor behaves as if it is the opposition party. No. Sometimes labor overacts as if it is also an alternative government. And finally, labor should know that there is strike fatigue. And when you declare strike too much and you take your workers for granted, you will lose some level of followership. And that is why you have sometimes the in the academic staff union, in the academic staff academic field now, you have academic staff union, you have Congress of University Academics, you have
Sanu?
the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, and then you have the Association of Doctors in Academics, NAMDA. They're all trade unions, because those members of ASU were fatigued of the excesses of ASU, and they formed their own union.
Distinguished Senator, thank you for the very important points that you have raised. And indeed, I think Nigerians too, it wouldn't be out of place to say that Nigerians too are, strike fatigued. All Nigerians are strike fatigued, not just the trade unions. You have raised very important issues that should emanate from, as lessons learned, from what has happened within the past 2 days, both on the side of labor and on the side of government. And that's why, again, Comrade Alanja, I just, again, like you to dwell on, the rules governing, strike as obtained in the international laws. Distinguished Senator has mentioned some of them. But one very important rule is for the trade unions to exhaustively, explore the conciliation and mediatory measures before even embarking on strike. And then you give a 20-day notice before giving on strike. So why is labor, always jumping these guns? Are they aware that these are laws, and that these laws are binding on them?
Well, thank you very much. Let me first of all commend the National Security Advisor, Malan Nuhu Ribadu, for the prompt intervention on this issue to resolve the strike. In every engagement, there are rules of engagement, and this is where I agree with distinguished Senator that some of the labor leaders really need orientations, in terms of, what are the rules of engagement, what are the issues to go on strike on, and stuff like that. The last 2 days, Nigerians have experienced a lot of hardship and pain. The Nigerian Labour Congress have inflicted pains on Nigerian workers, because what the reasons behind the 2 days strike was totally unnecessary, was uncalled for, where they did not really follow the rules of engagement before embarking on that strike. Because strike is not the first option to be brought to the table. There are different avenues of mediations before you get to that. It is condemnable that the labor leader was beaten in Imo State. It was highly condemnable. The Imo State government came out to condemn it. The other day I read in the social media where the governor, Hope Uzodinma, also tendered an apology to that regard. But and for me, it is purely a domestic issue, a local issue that need to remain within Imo State. But the NLC president, because he's from Imo State, he jumped into it, and his leadership also follows suit, which is totally uncalled for. There are more issues that Nigerians are expecting, the Nigerian Labour Congress to go on strike on. For example, October 3rd, government signed an agreement, an MOU.
Sorry, comrade, let me just chip in here, because the labor rep is not here with us.
Yes.
Nuhu Toru was here with us yesterday, and some of the issues he raised, he debunked those. That the NLC president didn't go to Imo for his personal.
Well, that is what.
Just hold on. For his personal interest. That the NLC president was in Imo, to empathize and mobilize workers and pensioners who claim that they have not been paid, for months or even years. The Imo State governor, claimed he wasn't, in the know of the president's visit. But that is not even the matter now. The issue has been, resolved. We are now looking at the process. again, the distinguished senator has just hinted, and rightly so, that ASUU is on edge over the 40% IGR remittances. You understand? So we must look at ways that Labour, you know, could explore other alternatives than strike action. It's killing the economy.
Absolutely.
In the past 2 days, I know how much stress it had taken out of, you know, those of us who, you know, have been on duty. Not just the economy, but even human stress. You know, so no one is.
Yeah, that is where actually.
Yeah, so let us look at the steps, the conciliatory and mediatory measures involved.
Yes, that is where I'm actually driving.
Yes.
You know, at, because, you know, for Labour to go on a strike, number one, they have to give notice of strike. You know, they have to place certain demands. For example,
notice of how many days?
21 days.
21 days.
By law, I think it's 21 days notice they need to have issued before they embark on strike. But let's look at, you know, the strike, the reasons behind the strike, because we're talking about on what kind of issues are they supposed to go on strike? They are supposed to go on strike strictly on account of workers' welfare, minimum wage, and stuff like that. But the last strike we experienced is not on account of, you know, workers' welfare. It is not. It is on the fact that their leader was brutalized, and that is why they shot the economy of Nigeria. But going forward, what we are saying, if Labour want to go on strike, first of all, they should exploit all the avenues of, you know, reaching at an agreement before they embark on strike. For example,
21
they
days
need to,
notice.
yeah, they need to give 21-day notice. Number two, they need to put forward their charters of demand and see if government will respond to some of those demands. For example, the agreement that was signed on the 3rd of October, I expect that ordinarily Labour would begin to, you know, monitor some of those things. For example, there is an agreement that, you know, they reach an agreement that government is going to set up a minimum wage committee. What is happening to that minimum wage committee? Has the minimum wage committee been able to set up, I mean, to be constituted? Yes. They also agree in that agreement that they are going to set up a joint committee to go around our refineries to ascertain the level of rehabilitations of those refineries. Is that ongoing? Are they, you know, engaging the government in terms of what they are doing to that effect? They also agree in that agreement that the federal government, you know, I think through, you know, will speak with the governors, because workers across the state are not receiving this 35,000 naira, you know, wage award. What are they doing with respect to that? Or is it only the federal workers that are affected as a result of this fuel subsidy removal? No, they are not the only person. So Nigerians' expectation is to see that Labour Congress engage on issues that got to do with the welfare of Nigerian workers and not on personal issues. So we expect them, you know, to follow the grand norms, the rules of engagement by, first of all, giving a notice. Secondly, advancing their charters of demands on what they want the government to do, you know, before, you know, resolving to the last option. I see strike as the last option, you know, that should be brought to the table in order to, you know, to achieve, you know, what they want. But what just happened is just a show of strength by the Nigerian Labour Congress, and it's totally uncalled for. What they achieved yesterday would have been achieved without them going into a strike action.
What would they have done to achieve? Because
what they would have done, okay, for example, when this incident happened, they placed a demand that the commissioner of police should be redeployed. The one area, I mean, Chinasa one area, who is the point man to, you know, in this whole incident, should be arrested and prosecuted. The commissioner of police
has he been arrested?
The national security advisor told Nigerians yesterday, you know, that he has been arrested. Yeah. And before now, the commissioner of police, you know, was redeployed from Imo State. Okay. So that alone should have, you know, assured them that government is, you know, doing something to ensure that they meet with their demand. But even with the subsistence court order, you know, they still went ahead to engage in this strike. I think is just a show of strength, and the intention is to sabotage the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the economy of Nigeria, which have suffered in the last 2 days.
Thank you very much, Comrade Alancha, for your thoughts there. And I think it's well taken. The need for continuous engagement of labor with government before they embark on strike. Let's go back to Comrade Issa Aremu. Comrade, I hope you are following the discussion. And one of the major focus here is the need to close the knowledge gap, the labor, the knowledge gap which Senator here spoke about, and which you also discussed about. You raised that issue yesterday. I want to find out your institutes, which is the National Institute for Labor Studies. Do you actually reach out to the labor leaders on the need to update them on this labor government relationship on a constant basis? And secondly, I want to find out how can labor unions strike a balance between protecting workers' rights and considering the overall economic health of the nation?
Well, thank you so much, Demola. I think, and let me also appreciate the NTA for giving the ample time for us to look at the issues in labor relations. But in discussing the issues in labor relations, I think we should also be mindful that the issues are not just about the unions or trade unions. I think the issues are about how do we ensure decent work in the country. Nigeria is a signatory to the core conventions of the International Labour Organization, which emphasize the need for decent work. What is decent work? Decent work is productive work for working men and women that is done in the condition of freedom, security, and of course, human dignity. It has to be productive, well paid for. Claire and Demola, you are doing a wonderful job there, but your job can only be decent if you are well remunerated, if you are secure, and it's done under dignity. And Nigeria has done, I can say, fairly well to make sure that we ensure decent work over the years. But there are a lot of challenges with the economic crisis. I just heard during your newspaper review now, you are talking of inflation rates going to the rooftop of about 27%. The implication on salary is clear. In fact, we have total collapse of wages, as the case may be. So I just want to raise this point to say that it's not just labor we're discussing. Even the employers, government officials need to come back to understand what labor issues are. So talking of knowledge gap, the knowledge gap, if there is any, and I know there is considerably, it's not just for labor, organized labor, but it has to be for employers of labor. It has to be for government officials. Take, for instance, I think the point has been raised by that analyst, my friend, the analyst, public affairs analyst. Yes, we have a national minimum wage. Now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, after engaging with organized labor, has now given 35,000, which will subside for as long as the new minimum wage comes into view. So effectively, the national minimum wage is about 65,000 now. Now, only federal is paying this now. Now, the burden is not just on labor. Labor, of course, must fight for that, but state government must obey this. So state government too must have the knowledge of the need to take their labor seriously. So if the federal does the part, state government must also do its part. In fact, no payment of salary is also criminal. No payment of correct salary. In fact, under the Minimum Wage Act, I think distinguished senator, we collaborate this. We have a clause for penalties for non-compliance. So what I'm saying here is that the knowledge gap, I think we need to go back to the basic to ensure that we understand what labor is all about. Labor is an important factor of development. Other factors cannot work. If humans are not happy, they are not well motivated. So, and that's why our institute was established as far back as 1983. It was commissioned in 1983 by the late President Shagari. It was part of the third development plan. And the whole idea is that the labor is a specialized field, so you need to promote knowledge among the key social partners, namely labor, employers of labor, government officials, to know that you need to motivate labor, educate them how to handle grievances, the world of work, how to engage in negotiations. So it's not just workers, even including government officials, as well as employers of labor. And over the years, they've been coming here to do so. But I would like to say that we need to now escalate it more. Senator Enang, you confirm this. Labor is on the exclusive list. It's so important. It's just like capital and land. They're on the exclusive list of our constitution, such that the government, our constitution knows that it's so important that you need to handle it at the labor sector. So there's a little Federal Ministry of Labor. But in recent time, some states are engaging in self-help. They even have what they call commissioners of labor. That's not outside their purview, including IMO. How do you handle grievances? Yes, they may have disputes with their workers, but they should escalate it to Ministry of Labor. Only Ministry of Labor has the competence, the kind of relevant department. In fact, there's a trade union service department. There's a department that deals with occupational health and safety. Now, so we need to also educate the governors. In fact, my institute is trying to organize, and I think, Senator Ita, you should partner with us in this. We need to organize a forum, with the governors forum, to know the importance of labor. Because most of the disputes that later have ripples at the federal level, they start at the local level, at the state level. And it's because the governors simply, it's not just labor that, at times only when labor respond that we are complaining about labor. What of governors that refuse to pay salary as are when due? What of governors that enter into agreements and refuse to respect? What of governors that refuse to listen to ultimatum? The idea of ultimatum is that, this is what we intend to do. Because labor is highly organized. It's not just like any other civil society. It's structured. So, and labor is not just going on strike in front of it. They just want to say, we are pushed to the wall. Let's discuss it so that we solve the problem. So what I want to say here is that I think everybody needs to really be on board so that we have knowledge of labor issues. Then we have many institutions in this country. Senator Ita has referred to some of them, IEP, we have the NIC. That's even where collective bargaining breaks down. You go for adjudication. But we also have the National Labor Advisory Council, which is tripartite. It's made up of government, made up of employers of labor, as well as organized labor. Those are areas that social dialogue should be promoted. So after the advocacy outside, dialogue come together, reason together, and solve the problem. And most of the key problems have been resolved through this instrumentality of these institutions. But I also want us to be very clear. Now maybe we have a problem at hand, and it's so unfortunate, this brutalization of NSA president. It has increased in us level. But wherever there has been peace so far, and there is plenty, especially in private sector, is because there is some knowledge among the employers, organized labor to solve problem. Unions sign a lot of agreements every other day, which do not come out to break down. All we need to do is to do that more. And for my institute, Demola, let me round up on this note. It has a governing board, which is made up of organized labor, employers of labor, as well as government officials. In fact, NSC has 2 representatives on our board, and I can confirm here that NSC has been very good partners of Labor Institute. In any case, it's named after number 1 labor man, Michael Imodu. So it's their own, and many affiliates of the unions have been coming here. So wherever you've seen peace in different sectors, is because they benefited from engagement that we have been organizing. But we need to do more. And that's the point I'm raising. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has come out with this 8-point agenda, eradicating poverty, economic growth and development, job creations, fighting corruption, and also. Now, it's important to now engage with labor, and I think my institute is also facilitating that through the Honorable Minister of Labor. In fact, the Honorable Minister of Labor, Samuel Lalong, and the Minister of Trade have given the go-ahead that we need to engage labor so that they are clear what the reforms are, that the benefits are there. They can also have their input in them, so that even if we are disagreeing, we know what we are disagreeing about. But I also know the government is committed to living wage. In fact, there is no better partner that we can have than the president, who is not just talking of minimum wage, living wage. And you can see the speed with which he considered to 35,000. Not only that, that's been paid. And I think all the parties should celebrate that, because it's collective achievement that has been done not through protest, but through negotiation. The other ones, we need to get them implemented. Don't also forget that part of the agreement, this government also suspended VAT, increase in the proposal to save VAT so that income can be protected. There are a couple of items there that we can. So all we need to do is to sit down now to work together. So the challenge with us is that there's need for partnership, both between government, employers, and of course organized labor. And that requires real knowledge among all the actors. Labor is a specialized field. We have many institutions that handle labor issues. In fact, National Wages and Salary Commission, people don't talk about that, Claire. It also has representatives of employers.
Yes, Comrade Issa Aremu, thank you. You've made so many points that I've lost count. But again, on the issue of welfare, workers' welfare, and human dignity, which you talked about. I mean, absolutely. Demola and I will be too glad, to, of course, experience greater, job satisfaction, and of course, improve, productivity. But then again, these things are not just, peculiar. With Nigeria, in other parts of the world, you also find that countries are grappling with economic misalignment. Indeed, in other parts, inflation rate has gone beyond even 90%. The other day we were having a chat on one of our, WhatsApp platforms, and someone said even one of the countries has inflation rate as high as even 99%, and we're like, oh, so global economic, dynamics are affecting all the countries. You understand? So, but the issue is, that is why we have the unions. We cannot pursue this needs ourselves. That's why we have the unions, the organized labor, to champion this cause for us. And where the organized labor do not have the wherewithal or the knowledge of how to do these things, then there's a problem. And that's why I want to bring in distinguished Senator Itai in here. Is there a need to actually, look into, the processes of is it election or selection of who, leads the organized labor? Because you have people like Comrade Issa Aremu, well-knowledged, in the labor laws. You have Comrade Oshomole. You listen to his speech, to his statement on this issue yesterday, from an informed perspective, though not everyone would agree with those perspectives. But these are, statements made by people who appear to know what to do and when to do that.
I think generally that every profession prioritizes continued legal education, refresher experiences. As a lawyer, we have continuing education platform, where in every bar conference, there will be the CLE forum, and new areas of laws are now taught and brought out, so that lawyers will update themselves. Even older lawyers who knew what they knew, other laws have been made, and most of them are not aware. Now, we have that in there. Then you also have in the medical profession, you have the continuous legal education. Now, continuous medical education. Yes, you have certifications at certain levels. Now, in the National Assembly, when you go into the legislature, There is the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. The first thing they do is to take you through orientation of 1 week. All the members elect, they take you through orientation of 1 week on all the committees, all the law, the different constitutional aspects, and so on. They also organize for state houses of assembly. You have the National Judicial Institute, which also elevates and raises the ideas of lawyers, judges, in the course of what they're doing. The same thing should go in up for labor. Now, labor is not just about a luta continua.
Precisely.
It's not just about ezobe. It is knowledge based. It is intellectual. It is tact, and that tact must be yes. And you also have to read and study the global practice, that is the international labor conventions. It's not just the domestic, the municipal laws of your country, the international labor conventions. You study the Labor Act, you study the Trade Dispute Act, you study the functions of the National Industrial Court. You also study what is the National Industrial Arbitration Panel is about. You also study to know how the alternative dispute resolution window of the National Industrial Court operates. Because when we handle these, the ASU case and the other one about the trade union, registrar of trade unions against the other group. Now, one of the matters was referred suo motu by the president of the court to the alternative dispute resolution multi-door court, the door court. Now, we went there. It's a different procedure of its own. So all this must be appraised to the labor family. They have to know that, and know that it is not just I have been elected, ezobe, a luta continua. It is, what does the law say? When do I give notice? When did the notice expire? Is there a court order? How can I proceed on this when there is a pending court order? If there is a court order, must I can I proceed on strike when the conciliator, the Minister of Labor, has apprehended the strike? Can I still proceed? And when we are on the table, what can we do? And can we proceed on strike when we have not mobilized the affiliates? Who are the people to decide on strike? These are all matters where the labor family has to be oriented.
And that's a function of the institute.
That's a function of the institute. And that's a function of the Makilimodi Institute. And that is a function of what you yourself, by self-improvement, ought to know. I was impressed. I'm impressed when I see most of them. I think 2 or 3 of them have gone to the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, MNI, and which shows that there is, on their part, a preparation to be an intellectual leader or lead of labor movement.
Should this be mandatory? Should this process be,
I think we should make it mandatory. And there is some other thing that I want to also suggest on this matter. There should be amendment of the law and the law, or a convention of the labor unions, that if you are a labor or a member of the executive of the labor unions, you should insulate yourself from politics. So that you can know if you are going to Imo State, or if there is a national election, APC is contesting, PDP is contesting, Labour Party is contesting. If you are handling any matter, we see you not as a member of Labour Party or the obedient, propagating the idea of the obedient, or taking action against us, the APC.
No, Labour Party is not obedient. Labour Party may not be obedient.
I apologize. So I apologize to them. I apologize to both of them.
Yes.
Now, so that you can insulate yourself from this, so that if you are in the leadership, although you have a right to choose to vote, you have a right to be a member, you have a right to, but for the purpose of the labor movement, because labor is made up of people who are labor members, workers are made up of people who belong to one political party or the other, and some who don't belong to either party, or who will want to choose a candidate to vote for because of what he has presented. So if you are a leader of the labor movement, you cannot forcibly, if you are a leader of the labor movement, and then you are a member of the Labour Party and a leader of the Labour Party, and you are campaigning for the Labour presidential candidate, or the Labour gubernatorial candidate, or the Labour senatorial or assembly candidate, and that we should be able to draw a distinction so that you become a leader that leads. There are institutions which insulate their leaders from partisan politics, but you can vote or be voted for. And if you want to contest,
this is a new normal now.
Yes,
this is a new normal now. That yes.
So your point is well noted. You have emphasized the need for labor leaders to insulate themselves from partisan politics.
Yes.
And also the need for continuous updating of knowledge,
Yes.
which is very vital. Well, let me come back to, because we'll soon be going for another break, but I wanted to just speak on one issue that Comrade Issa Aremu raised. That is the issue of keeping to terms of agreement. You find out that when an agreement is reached, one party will default, not being able to implement it. So, do you think after the negotiations, the federal government with the organized labor, an agreement reached, present demands, how do you, settle, how do you harmonize or settle that kind of situation where the, agreement, is reached, but government on their part failed to implement, their own part of the deal?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just hope that labor leaders are listening to this conversation going on here, because distinguished senator have really raised a lot of issues that will, help the labor union going forward, especially in terms of the knowledge of who, the knowledgeability of who leads the organization. Now, having said that, you see, let's look at the just recently signed agreement between the labor unions and the federal government. And that is why we are saying that the expectations of Nigerians is to see labor being committed to the agreement in terms of their demands. Have they been able to hold a government accountable to see that they are on their toes in terms of, sticking to the agreement? Is the government really committed to the agreement? For me, I will tell you that yes, government is committed to the agreement. As I speak to you, federal workers are receiving the 35,000 wage award. I don't know if you have received yours.
How many of the states
now
are
that is
complying?
where labor need to come in. Are workers in the state, are they part of this 35,000 wage award, which makes the minimum wage 65,000?
That was what Ajero claimed. That was what Ajero claimed. He was going to, mobilize members of the NLC, in Imo State. No. Don't miss the point. Ajero did not mobilize Imo on the basis of this 65,000 naira, minimum wage was not paid. But no, it's a pension.
The additional 35 is now 65. The additional, but he mobilized on the basis of the, arrears. I think 20 or 22 months that the government of Imo State is owing. And what Nigerians are saying, if you can mobilize in Imo, why didn't you mobilize in Benue? Why didn't you mobilize in Nasarawa? Why didn't you mobilize in Adamawa? This has
Kogi.
He will tell you it's strategic. He will tell you
hold on.
Strategic.
And that is why, because of the strategic nature of the this thing, the timing was absolutely wrong. Because 2 weeks to an election, you are mobilizing. The impression he is creating, and it's unfortunate that he's creating that impression, because the impression Nigerians have now, if you are following up on social media, you will see, a hashtag NLC TUC, aka Labour Party. They are reducing the Labour Party to a mere, another version of student union. Now, it's unfortunate. Okay, so what we are saying is that this agreement that the government have signed, they should be committed to it. They should be asking questions. Ask the government, what are they doing in terms of rehabilitation of our refineries? Thankfully, 5%, the VAT have been removed. It's commendable.
We'll put you on hold. We'll put you on hold. Let's quickly take a short break. All right. Well, I'm sorry. I've just been told that we've because we have two issues to discuss. Yes.
This morning.
Yes.
But I would have loved that you land on the need for us to know what should be done when the agreement is not reached. But anyway, we do not have time any longer. Our time is fast gone. So we just want to thank you, Comrade Dominic Alancha, for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Your points are well noted. Thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Also, we want